Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
Absolute format is the best way to own this store. Time to empty those wallets and fill those shelves.
Hello everybody, we're going to be doing a first look at the DC Finest Justice Society of America. Let's go ahead and get to it. And welcome back everybody to Near Mint Condition, and today we are going to continue the DC Finest first looks, of which now is the Justice Society of America for America and for Democracy trade paperback. This is of course published by DC Comics, the first of the JSA line, and next year, God willing, we will get a continuation of the Golden Age JSA. Here's a look at the front. The classic JSA characters, including Dr. Fate, the Hourman, and the Spectre, and all of our other friends. Here's a look at the spine, Justice Society of America, for America and for Democracy. Again, aptly named after one of the stories that is in here. Candid with, of course, the years 1940 to 1942. And here is a look at the back with the same presenting DC Finest stories, all displayed out as it seems, with the beginning of the age there, 1940, 1942. This specific trade paperback collects issues 3 through 12 of All-Star Comics, and also retails again at the same price. This paperback collects All-Star Comics 3 through 12, and is retailing at $39.99, just as all of the other DC Finest trade paperbacks do. And this also clocks in at 608 pages, which is one of the larger DC Finest trade paperbacks that we've had so far. Let's go ahead and look inside the book. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the inside of this book. This is, of course, the cover to JSA for America and for Democracy, with the cover artist being E. Hibbard and Sheldon Moldoff. This has been homaged in the Jeff Johns trade paperbacks and oversized omnibuses that I've read. So that was my exposure to JSA. Can't wait to get into the meet with the Hourman and Alan Scott and the rest of the crew. Sheldon Mayer, who was one of the conceptual people behind the scenes, thinking about how to lay this onward, with of course Gardner Fox being the editor. Copyright information there, and all stories here are written by Gardner Fox unless otherwise noted. And as you can see, and I'll be able to talk about this was an anthology series, and as anthology series goes, they do have a lot of creators build on them. Some of them I found stronger more than others, but we do have issues 1 through 12 there, and the book also lists the same content warnings and just overall heat of further notice about comics created in the 1940s being what they are, and that they have not altered them in any format or shape. So JSA, roll call here today, as if I haven't seen this table a billion times over. It feels like a long time coming for me to finally get around to reading Golden Age comics, and by Golden Age comics, what better way to kick it off than to have an issue where you have turkey. It kind of reminded me of my Thanksgiving break, being able to celebrate that with family and friends, and the introduction to what would be my most interesting read, I guess I would say, of the bunch. I don't know if I'd put it at the top. I don't know if I'd put this at the bottom of the DC Finest books that I had on the top of my list, but David S. Goyer, Jeff Johns, and James Robinson have all played major roles in making me care about these characters. So my next step for me was, what were they actually like in the 1940s? Jeff Lemire is currently writing JSA as we speak. He is on the brand new JSA ongoing as part of the DC All-In initiative. We will have to see what he does there. But he posted a picture of All-Star Comics issue number 3, and my question was he going to be inspired by the Golden Age run of Gardner Fox, Sheldon Mayer overseeing everything, and everybody else who had laid on the title? All-Star Comics issue number 3. Now, your question probably will be, why doesn't this include issues 1 through 2? Because those issues didn't have the JSA thrown in there. This was the first time that National Publications had decided, let's go ahead and team up all the characters in our book to see how they met along and are going to be part of this. After all, it isn't billed as a team book, even though it certainly is branded that way by DC. All of these stories, for the most part, are self-contained individual pieces with different characters having 5, 6, 12, 13, 14 pagers. It's not this ongoing, continuing saga like you would read in your JLA by Grant Morrison or your JLI by Keith Giffen and J.M. DeMatteis. It very much is, here are the pieces of what these characters are doing in one spot, and let's see how they react when they are set off by themselves. Some of these later issues, too, the one that struck me the most was issue 11, where they are sent off to the war in the Pacific to fight the Imperial Japanese Empire, because during that time they were on a rampage against the Orient and the Chinese theater. So I found a lot of these issues interesting because some of these are due to World War II and the overall look at the US being what would eventually be the torchbearers of bringing democracy over to other countries. A lot of that inspired the writing by Gardner Fox and other creators like Jerry Siegel and other people like that who wrote these stories. The nice thing too about these are that they also have the short stories, again with Johnny Thunder, that are placed in here along with the different characters that are also shoved in, so you get the full picture and scope of action, or All-Star Comics I should say. You don't really get to see any pieces left behind. But you do also get the nice little side bands of, hey, like you can follow this character in this comic whenever that comes around. And that is nice to see. Like, oftentimes you don't get that. It also is cool to see Wonder Woman also showing up in some of these issues. As far as extras are concerned with the book, they only have the timeline pages, but they do have the cutouts for sending books in and also joining the All-American Flying Club and other advertisements like that. They are all in. Like I said earlier, the Justice Society of America was mostly a concept in series brought over by Gardner Fox, who wrote a good chunk of these stories, though not all of them, and also by Sheldon Mayer, who was the editor of the series at the time. You had other creators like Robert Kanigher who were thrown in there, and you had all these different team meetings and characters being thrown into different situations. Of course, the original team consisted of Our Man, the Spectre, who I think Gardner Fox had the strongest writing of, and I think you could tell. The Atom, Hawkman, Alan Scott the Green Lantern, Jay Garrick the Flash, and Dr. Fate. So these were and Sandman. So these were characters that were thrown into the mix because they decided, hey, let's go ahead and see how these characters would react in different spots, and some of them with very, very different results. Now, as you might notice, there are also Golden Age type stories like this Johnny Thunder story, who was also a predominant member as part of these comics. In fact, if you actually look at issue number 5, maybe slight spoilers, which is reprinted in whenever a member had their own title, the character would be this honorary member of JSA, and they would get to star in their own comic. Jay Garrick would eventually get his own, and after that, we would get Barry Allen, and Alan Scott would eventually leave DIP as well. So you had characters coming in and out of this book. It wasn't a team book. This is characters all set on their own. Now, the most interesting part, there I guess is my handy-dandy Wonder Woman bookmark, who also does appear in this collection. Issue number 8 also features the first appearance of Diana, or a character that we would eventually know to be Diana, known of obviously as Wonder Woman. But I do find this material interesting because it isn't the most daunting, I would say, of the bunch. A lot of these characters were definitely not as strong as I think DC intended for them to be. After all, there is a reason to why the JSA disbanded 10-15 years later. You have characters such as Alan Scott and Jay Garrick basically being retrofitted for different characters like Barry Allen and Hal Jordan because they look cooler and could fit better with the times. You of course also have characters like Dr. Midnight who step in. And I don't think it was until the 1980s where DC, with the pen of Roy Thomas, were able to realize the full potential that they could have with some of these legacy characters. And some of these bits, too, I could definitely tell influence the writing of David S. Goyer and James Robinson when they rebooted the JSA in the late 1990s. That would eventually be one of the flagship courses of Jeff Johns' introduction to writing at DC Comics. So I think for a historical perspective, it is important to see what this title is and how it fits with the rest of the world of the early 1940s. This is an interesting case in point because a lot of it, again, they are one-offs. They're not stories that are meant to really push the needle. I think if you wanted anything to push the needle, you're probably going to be reading that in Superman and Action Comics. I think you'll find a lot less of that here. But I really, really wanted to see what characters were like in the 1940s, how they appeared and changed with the times, and all of these characters would eventually find different roles as the years would move along. This was a trial run by DC to figure out, hey, let's see, there's a market for these characters. Are people going to continue reading this anthology series? And with all of the shuffling, the series still lasted a good bit. Definitely a lot longer than if this were released today. I don't think you could do a Justice Society of America in the year 2024, or even 2014. But a lot of these stories are decently crafted. The Gardner Fox stories are the ones that I most enjoyed. Jerry Siegel had a couple of stories that I didn't think were all too impressive, although they are there. I think most of his writing fits a lot better for characters like Superman. But I think the one nice thing about this book is that there is a historical aspect to it that shouldn't be carried away. Gardner Fox was very, very big into real life events, and the characters are placed in situations that mimic a lot of the events that were happening on in the real world. And you can see that in this one. Like I said earlier, the one that struck me the most was the issue where a lot of them are sent off to go fight the war in the Pacific. One, even they're set in the Philippines. Maybe that's just my home calling, but I do feel like that one had very much a big impact on me because I wanted to see what people in America thought of the Philippines back in 1940, 1941. And I guess newsflash, they must not have known much of that as well. But it is nice to see that you are being thrown bits and pieces here and there. You also get to see other characters like Thunderbolt. Again, like I said earlier, Johnny Thunder. So it is nice to see what the characters were like in this period of time. It's just interesting to see that they have evolved so much over the years. But one thing that I think I can say is the most important bit of the Justice Society of America is the concept of legacy. The concept that you have something to build upon when you set down and lay and say, these are the characters that are going to last for however long this generation is. And I don't think the concept stuck until we took Roy Thomas and everything that he had written in the 1980s with All-Star Squadron to realize that point. But I do think it is important to note that everything in the foundation for those pieces that we have today for characters that eventually would be stocking up both by Marvel and DC, whether that's the New Mutants or if it's Infinity Inc. It's characters like those that made me stick with this title, and seeing the groundwork for that, I think, was pretty tremendous to see as a new time reader to a lot of these stories. So it is nice to see that they are advertising their books, although it would be nice to have some other different extras. But that, as they say, is that.
CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. BD Cosmos, the Canadian leader in graphic novels. They have a physical storefront in Montreal, Quebec, and their website, bdcosmos.com, offers 25% off your order of over $99 or more, and free shipping everywhere in Canada for every order of $200 or more.
Their shipping care is exceptional. Your books will stay cozy through the rough Canadian weather and arrive to you in near mint condition.
After checkout, let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way, and you'll be added to the monthly $25 gift card raffle. Entries are valid for new and returning customers.
Don't be afraid to call or email them. Ask them questions. Their staff is always happy to help guide you towards the right purchase. Visit their website, bdcosmos.com, for more. BD Cosmos, with rewards and raffles taking care of customers in Canada. Eh?
Let me know down in the comments section below, Minties, if you are planning on picking this up and which other DC Finest trade paperbacks you have picked up or are planning to pick up. I am, of course, Dom of X. You be you. Take care, dominate the day wherever you go, and stay fresh, Minties.